for number 12, we are identifying the domain and range of the relations for number 11, or from number 11. And so we will do A and B together. So those are corresponding to the graph that we did as well as the mapping diagram. So 12A is asking us really about 11A, and we want to know the domain and range. Well, remember, domain is all of your inputs, range is all of your outputs. So another word for inputs were our independent variables, aka our x's. So what are all the x coordinates we see in example A? Well, nothing is plugged in for -3, nothing is plugged in for -2, there's nothing there for -1, but we have an input or an x coordinate of 0, an x coordinate of 1, so we've got those 2 points there, and an x coordinate of 2. So all of our inputs, for example, for problem 11A was 0, 1, and 2. All of our outputs, those are going to make up our range. Those are all the y coordinates that were in our graph. So the lowest y coordinate we have is down there at -2. And then we have an output of -1. We have an output of 0. We have an output of +1. Oops. And we have an output of +2. Now, if we're ever unsure going from a graph to domain and range, you can always make a table in between. So if you want to make a table full of all of your ordered pairs and then recognize, oh, your x's, those are your inputs, those make up your domain, and the y's are your outputs, they make up your range, that's totally fine too. It's just a question of how many steps you need to take to get to where you're going, and take as many as you need. In problem number 12B, we're asked about the mapping diagram from 11B, and our domain, those are all of our inputs, and they're in their own bubble for us. Remember, we start with curly brackets. Well, it's not great. There we go. And then we write them in order from least to greatest. So least would be -3, next would come 2, and then comes +3. Our range is all of our outputs. Even though they repeat, we don't care. We just say, well, all of the outputs were from least to greatest, -6, +5, and +6. Then you will find the domain and range for 11C and 11D in order to answer problems 12C and 12D. And then lastly, our last section was section 1.8, where we represent functions as graphs. So from this section, you need to be able to plot points on the coordinate plane, and remember those come as ordered pairs. And your number that comes first in your ordered pair is always your x coordinate. That tells you how to move left or right. If it's positive, you're moving to the right. Negative, you're moving to the left. Your y always comes second. That tells you whether you're moving up or down. Positive y's tell you up. Negative y's tell you down. Then you need to be able to label points with their ordered pairs or their quadrants. Remember, when we label our quadrants, we used Roman numerals, and they go clockwise starting in the top right corner. So we've got quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And to help us remember, we wrote the letter C. So we start in quadrant 1, we move to quadrant 2, keep going to 3, and then all the way to 4. And then the third thing from section 1.8, write a rule for a function given a graph or table. Those rules always came from the form y equals mx plus b, and we'll talk more about that when we get to those problems. And then lastly, you need to be able to graph a function given a rule and a domain. These functions will always be linear, aka they make a line. So if you ever end up with something that is not a line, check your answer, because your points should fall in a straight line. So example or problem number 13, plot and label the following points on the coordinate plane to the right. So we will do A, B, and C together, and then I'll leave you to do B and E. So point A is the ordered pair 7, 4. This means we are going to move to the right 7 and up 4 from our origin. So we're starting here and we're moving to the right 7. So that leaves us here. We also need to move up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So our final answer is just that point. We erase all of those movements. That was just to help us get to where we were going. So we can label it, that's the point, lowercase a, and it's the ordered pair 7, 4. Example B, if we have a negative x coordinate and a positive y coordinate, even though it doesn't ask us, let's think about what quadrant that'll be in. Well, that means that we're moving to the left 3 and up 6. We will be in the second quadrant. So from our origin, we move left 1, 2, 3, and up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But of course, we erase everything as we moved to get there. That's just to help us see where we're going. That is the point B, negative 3, 6. Lastly is the ordered pair 0, 9. We move left or right 0 from our origin. So that means that we are going to be on our y-axis. So we've got a point on our y-axis. We are just moving up 9. So that's going to leave us right at the very tippy top. And that is point number C, or letter C, and the ordered pair is 0, 9.